create an atmosphere where people feel safe to give their opinion, they feel heard, and they feel valued. And I'll tell you another thing I love to do, any chance I get is if somebody brings something up and I like it more than what I originally said, I very much make a point to say, no, what, you're right. No, you're right on this, I'm not. That way, other people see me say that. I'm not right all the time, and I don't need to be right. I need to win. And that's what I tell the team. I said, look, listen, I don't need to be right about everything. I need us to win as a unit. And if we can get there, then we can really, really do some things. Well, that's going to start with getting some walls down, getting some trust in place where people can actually say what they think.
I heard earlier you mentioned that you had read E-Myth, which is a pivotal part of like implementing processes in your businesses. I've actually heard on a previous podcast that you've done, you read Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I just want to ask, like, what are your top book recommendations for not only entrepreneurs, but just people out there trying to better themselves in business and life? Yeah.
Cool. So for entrepreneurs, I'd read every one of Patrick Lencioni's books.
Wow.
Yeah. So Death by Meeting, what was the 5 Roles of a CEO, Getting Naked, The Ideal Team Player. I've read all these books. So I would do that. And then for just, I guess, life in general, that's a tough one, man. Because most of the books I've read are business books. Mm-hmm. So I guess you could go read some of Tony Robbins' stuff. And then if you want to, you can go jump around at a conference. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah.
And I was going to kind of ask you, so when you originally started your company, it was just you and 2 other people. But for any business owner out there, a lot of people, they tend to be that solopreneur early on. They want to wear all these hats and do all these things. But it seems like you got really good at delegating and bringing the right people in. So I wanted to first ask, how important was the skill of learning how to delegate, various tasks and bringing people in? And also for someone who's initially first starting that business, you as the business owner, as the CEO, you're kind of more the visionary. Who are those people that people should look to bring in early on to help them grow that company to the scale of employees and revenue and everything? Like, who are the people that you look to bring in, and how important was it learning to delegate?
All right. Well, learning to delegate is very, very important. Allowing yourself to delegate is even more important. Depending on who you are, as far as your personality type or whatever, one thing I would tell you is that you don't want to hire another you. A lot of people will start a business with a friend and they're exactly the same person. And so they both want to do the same thing. So I don't just look at the skill set, but I also look at what do I have an energy for and what don't I? For example, estimating. I'm really good at estimating. I hate going through the specs. I hate going through the drawings because these big documents, right? They're long, they're very legal, they're very technical. So hiring an estimator for me, when I enjoyed driving around, going to the jobs, making sure all the equipment was there, making the subcontractor meetings, and having him stay back and go through those plans all day in the air conditioner, he loved it. Whereas I didn't, because I don't like sitting still. I like to go. I'm a go person. But for that particular position, it's best that it's a very detail-oriented person, almost an engineer's mind, maybe not even that social. So my main job, and any business owner's main job, is to set themselves up to be graceful, or set their people up to be graceful. But that's also including yourself. So I took a step back and I said, does Justin need to be estimating? No. Because either he won't do it or he'll skip shit. And for that reason, I fired myself from that role. And so knowing yourself is very, very important, but identifying the type of person, whether it be personality type or the type, or you can quite tell that their personality lines up, like an outgoing person would do sales. But I would never ask the guy that keeps our books to do sales. He's very introverted. And he's very like this, which is perfect for accounting. So you really need to look at the individual on your team or that you want to bring in, or you need to think about the position itself and be like, what type of person would do good in this role? What type of person that if I hired, they would be successful? Because your job as the owner is to set them up to be graceful. And you should never ask anybody to go against what they're naturally inclined to do, including yourself. So I'd never hire anybody that was exactly like me, unless I wanted to completely exit. And I would never put myself in a position to have a job that I've given to myself that I am not set up to be graceful for. So I think that's one thing to think about for sure when scaling.
So when you were first getting those couple of jobs in and you were noticing, I really like doing this, I'm not really a big fan of, What were some of those levers that you had to pull in order to go from 6 figures to 7 figures and eventually 8 figures?
So for us, it really got to about finding people to bid work to. So I set up this system that's kind of slick. I looked really big on paper really early. What I did is I got a mentor. He sent me his proposal template. And so I took his proposal template, wiped his name off it, put my name on it, but it was legit. It's like 5 pages. It looks like a huge steel erection company. I did that, and then I hired somebody to make me a pre-qualification packet, which was really just a packet talking about our safety and all this other shit. But bro, we had like 4 guys. Then I'm like, okay, well, where are all these big GCs at? So I can leave the backyard building and go work in commercial work and do a 100,000 square foot building, a big one. Well, the architects invite the contractors to bid, and they had this form, and I knew about this. It's called a pre-job walk form. So I hired a girl. She would call the architect's office, say, hey, I'm with blah, 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 Red Iron Construction. I was just looking for the pre-job walk form so I can, send my bid out to the contractors, and they would send it. And so at that time, we might have had 2 general contractors, telling us or sending us requests for quotes. And what we would do is, let's say there was 10 general contractors bidding a job, school job, let's say, and only 1 invited us. I didn't give a fuck. I sent it to all 10 of them. And so on bid day, they get this bid, it's very formal looking. We get pre-qualification package. I have a template email. Hey, I know bid day is crazy. Just wanted to send you our quote on this job. Best of luck today. What would end up happening is either I would win the job somehow, or they didn't win the job, but I was now on their bidders list. So it got to this point where I had all these general contractors asking me to bid work. So I had to double down. When I first hired my estimator, he was part-time. So I had to make him full-time. Now we're getting all these bids in. And so we set up what's called a bid schedule, got all that stuff, and we just got to a point where we're just spitting out 5, 6 bids a week, just fucking, bidding like $20 million worth of work, and we won $2, $3 million worth of that work. And I'm like 26, and yeah, man, and we just beat the ground for contractors. We got on Construct Connect and maybe I Square Foot and all these things, and found out where all these GCs were, and just started unsolicited bidding them. Like I didn't give a fuck whether they'd get mad at me for bidding the job or not. Give a fuck. Like I sent it to them, and they're like, well, they didn't have to send it. Like fucking, so that's how we really started to kind of grow, is we started getting a lot of attention from people. And we started putting buildings up, and I made sure my sign was out. I made sure I took photos. I made sure I blasted it on social media. I did everything. But honestly, that particular trick is, I think, what did it.
Wow. And you hear all the time about the power of habit and how that leads to success in some of the most renowned and successful entrepreneurs out there. And I've heard you talk about how, you'll spend, like an hour to 2 hours a day, by yourself driving around just to allow yourself to think, what would you, and you're very serious about like your fitness as well in the gym, and that's become a very, common habit of yours. What would you say are the top 3 biggest wealth building habits that you've seen that have led to your success and that you would recommend to someone? So for someone watching this, they want to, get really serious. Maybe they don't have a routine or their habits in order. What are the most important wealth creating habits that you found that have led to your success?
Well, first, like you said, the gym. I'm a gym rat at heart. I'm in love with that place. It's church to me. 2, those drives are very impactful, especially early in the morning. I always say that if you're going to meet God, he's up at 4 a.m. And I'm not telling people to wake up at 4 a.m. And I'm not stating that I still wake up every morning at 4 a.m. I'm not fucking David Goggins. I will say that if you're going to be able to hear God speak, it's when your world is so quiet, you can hear the voice inside your head. And that is very impactful, because a lot of times in life and business, you know what you're supposed to do. You have to just make it quiet enough around you that you can hear it. And once you hear it, it's hard to ignore. So that, I think, is a really good thing to do, is spending time. And look, sometimes it's not even at 4 a.m. Sometimes it's in my truck going down some back roads, sipping on some whiskey, listening to Aldean. It's Jesus to me. You know?
I wanted to touch on, not only in your construction business, real estate, and everything that you got going on now, what would be your best sales advice for entrepreneurs, just people in sales roles, the solopreneur, people that are just trying to drive revenue for their business? Also in just daily life, you got to be able to sell yourself. So what's your best sales advice to anybody out there?
Believe in your product so much that you feel like if they don't buy from you, you're fucking them over. Straight up.
Yeah.
If you don't believe in your product so much, you feel like you're hurting the person you're talking to by not selling it to them, then you won't have any trouble selling. A lot of people know they're selling snake oil, and for that reason, the conviction in their eyes doesn't come across. They don't know that it's the best thing for the person. But when you know it's the best thing for the person, it's very, very, very hard not to be able to sell, because then they have to have something holding them back, And when you know it's going to help them, you can show them how it's going to help them. And so you start to paint a picture of a future they might have with your product. And when you can paint that very clearly and very decisely and with a lot of conviction, it's hard not to buy from you.
You brought up believing in your product, and it seems like you've definitely found your winning product. But for people out there that maybe they're in e-commerce, regardless of the industry that they're in, what advice would you give to someone trying to find that winning product that can eventually help them sell for millions of dollars? And let me say it this way. The steel and the construction industry is very competitive, right? There's thousands of construction companies out there. What's the biggest thing that you've implemented throughout your company, whether it's product, team, that really makes you stand out in a competitive industry?
Well, I think the crazy thing about construction is, like, on the first sell, it's always going to be conviction. It's looking them dead in the eyes and be like, listen, bro, I'm going to hit your fucking schedule. I'm going to work with other subs. You need us. Conviction. From there, I think you get the repeat business by doing the right thing on the job. Because construction is not an easy industry. It's going to rain, the equipment's going to get stuck, guys are going to make mistakes, there's going to be material not show up on time. It's like, how do you work through that with the general contractor and make sure that when they go back and review the job, that they say, you know what, those guys were good for us, let's keep using them if we can. So a lot of times it's going through war with the contractor, and being there through the storm with them, and they know that you're going to turn up every time, even when it's bad. I said, one of my biggest customers, I've lost a bunch of money on some jobs with them. And I think that the reason that they kept coming back to us is they knew I'd never run. I sat there and just took it and took it and took it. And they kept giving me work. And I made the money back. But on some projects, man, I might lost 50, 60 grand, over something. And so if you can stand in there and take the blows, even when they know you're taking blows, or particularly when they know you're taking blows, that doesn't go away, because in our industry, there's so many people that disappear and go off in the night and just start another business in another state. So if you're able to have that character and they know that you're going to stick in there and go to war with them, then you have a really, really good shot at continuing to work for them.
You just mentioned having to overcome obstacles, even if it means taking a loss sometimes. Yeah. What would you say is the biggest obstacle or the hardest obstacle you've had to overcome in your career, or what would you say is the biggest obstacle you've had in your career, and how did you overcome that? Yeah,
so I got down $1 million one time, and I thought I was going to go bankrupt. I had to remortgage my house and to make payroll. All my lines of credit were maxed out. My credit cards were maxed out. We're playing this game where it's like, oh, if we move money over here and do this, then maybe we can make payroll. And I think I was just punch drunk. I tried to scale, and I hired a guy that had a good track record. It didn't work out. He missed a few bids in a row. And so it was like, I lost $250,000, and then I lost 100 grand, and then I was like, bam, bam. And I was kind of like just out on my feet for like 8 months to a year. It was just a hard time. I didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to quit so bad. I was like in